This is going to be the first in a series of tutorials to help you complete all the stages of the project, the app that I call Target. So obviously we're starting with stage 1. What we will do is throughout those tutorial videos, we will be between the written guide, which is, of course, what you can find on your course shell, and actually demonstrating the steps. Now, I'm going to, of course, create a new Unity project, and I'm going to name it with, my name, Target. So, obviously, if your name's Smith, you're going to call it Smith Target. And you're going to make sure, just like we did in previous project, to use the 3D built-in render pipeline, which is better for this kind of project. So I'm in the Unity Hub. I'm about to create a new project, but I'm going to make sure that I'm not using Universal 3D, which is great for other kinds of projects like VR, but instead of it using the 3D built-in render pipeline. I'm reminding everyone that you're not always going to find the 3 built-in render pipeline like on the top. Sometimes you'll have to look for it. You can just search the word built. And here it is. And make sure you, of course, use the 3D one. Click. And I'm going to call my project Target for Video, because that's the one I'm using for, recording this video. I'm going to save it to where I usually save projects. I recommend you do the same. And create the project. And of course, I'm doing this while I'm recording. On some computers, this process of, opening a new project can take, up to 10 minutes. But hopefully on this computer, it's going to take a lot less. And while it's opening, here it is, we're going to go to the next step. And this is important. If you notice any differences in names, values, anything between this, series of recorded tutorials and the written guide is always going to be more updated. You're going to download a zip package. We've done this in other projects before, which is the teacher's assets. You're going to unzip and then copy all of its contents into the assets folder of your project. It contains all the stuff that we will need for the rest of your project. And if any dialogues show up, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, click yes, and you're going to check the console and see if you can clear all the warnings. Remember, if you can clear it, it's not really an error. I've already downloaded the teacher assets. You're going to download the zip, you're going to unzip it, on Mac, on Windows, assuming you already know how to do that. And I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to my assets and paste it. The only thing in your assets, and by now should be just the scenes. And now I've added this. By the time I go back to Unity, it is processing those assets. Let's see if any dialogues come up. It really depends on the version you're using. For this video, I'm using version 6.5.1, which is the latest one at the time I'm recording. No dialogues came up. I do see that if I go to the console, I see it might look a little scary, but if I click clear, if they get all cleared, that means there's no error, and we are ready to start. Of course, I will also save because something did change about this. Let's go to the instructions. First of all, let's set up the environment. I'm going to save this. In your game window, change aspect ratio from free aspect to WXVGA, 1366 by 768. It's one of the options. And now, you're probably, we talked about it before, going to be starting with, the default window layout. What I like to do a lot of times is take the game window, drag it, tear it, and put it here. That way I can see the scene window and the game window, and there's still enough room for, looking at assets. The other thing I like doing is zooming out until it becomes, instead of icons, an alphabetical list. Speaking of the game window, the last thing we were told to do is change it from free aspect to WXGA. and save. Remember, we always save twice, save and save project, because save saves only the scene that you're on. Next, then give the main camera these settings. Let me make it a little bigger so it's easier for me to see. It's very close to the default settings, except 1.2 and negative 10.55 and field of view 70. So sample scene, unfolded, main camera instead of negative 10, negative 10.55. It's designed so we can see the, that room that we're going to build in the optimum kind of way. Field of view is like zooming, and we're going to use 70, which is a little wider than, it's like zooming in, zooming out. 70, we can always change it later on. It's the appropriate one for this game. Again, save and save. Now we will build the room. Let's see if I forgot anything here. No, it doesn't look like I forgot anything. We haven't changed skyboxes or anything like that yet. Now we will build the room. We're going to start by adding the floor, which is going to be a plane. We've done this before. Make sure to follow parameters. So the parameters are the default ones, other than the floor is going to go down 1 meter on the Y and be 10 by 10 on its width and depth. Scale Y doesn't matter because it's a plane, it's flat. So though there's more than one way of doing this, of course. Under Game Object, I can do this. I can right-click in the hierarchy, which is my favorite. 3D Object, Plane. We've talked about this before. Sometimes it comes up with weird numbers on the transform, and then I can use the 3 dots to reset. But the one change I'm going to make is, first change is -1 on the Y, so it goes basically this. The idea is that if the camera is 1.2 and the floor is -1, I'm about 2 meters above the floor. And I need a bigger floor, so its X, its width is going to be 10, and its Z is going to be 10. No need to touch the Y because planes are flat. Save. Next. Then we're going to create an empty game object called room. Usually when we create empty game objects, it's to serve as a container. We will do more than one of them in this project. And this is the first one. So right-click, create empty. See how it comes up with weird numbers? If I don't notice that, it's going to put my room in a really weird position, and everything in it will relate to this weird position. So 3 dots, reset before I do anything, and call it room. Again, make sure it's reset. Then, inside it, as a child, we're going to create a cube and give it the following settings. So, what does it mean as a child? It just means that I click on the room, I right-click on it, and while it's selected, I create a 3D object cube, and the cube becomes its child. If, let me undo, for some reason, let me delete this. I did it wrong, and I right-clicked and not on the room, but on the general hierarchy, and created a 3D object cube. See how it's not a child of it, but it's really easy to make it a child. All I have to do is drag it in. But see how it comes up with weird stuff? Let me reset. Drag it into the room, kind of like, up and to the left. Let go and becomes a child. Now let me give it the right parameters. Z10 and then 80, 50, and 2. Z10, 80 meters, 50 meters, and 2. What is this? It looks like, big block. If I zoom out with my mouse wheel, here, it's basically the front wall. If I'm looking at it from the top, from Y, if this is my main camera, I am looking at the front wall of our room. And it also says to change the name of this cube to wall. It will be the basis for all our 4 walls. To the cube, which is now called wall, we're going to add the component audio source and the audio generator not pin, in older versions is called audio clip. Now it's called audio generator. It's basically what sound am I attaching to the audio source, and we're going to look for the audio source miss impact, which is one of the clips that came with the teacher's assets. We're going to uncheck play on awake, and it says see video target. No. Here's how we're going to do that. Select the wall. I can see its inspector, add component. As soon as I type the word audio or even AU, it comes up with all the components that include the word audio. The one I need is audio source. And now they call it audio generator. If you happen to be using an older version, it might be called audio source or audio clip. In any case, little target icon. And the one I need is miss impact. It's the sound. I don't know if you just heard that. Almost like a little explosion, but it's more like something hitting a wall. That's the sound the wall is going to make when I miss my target and hit the wall. And I'm going to also uncheck play and awake. Why am I going to do that? Because if I don't check that, if I play my game, it's going to play that sound as soon as it plays. I don't want that. I want it to wait for an impact to play. There's going to be a script that's going to trigger it to play. So I'm going to uncheck play on awake and save. One more component we're going to add to the wall is a new script. We will talk about it in class, but in any case, adding a script, there's more than one way, but I'm going to do it what I think is the easiest way. Now, what's important about adding the script is the exact name. What I tend to do is simply highlight in the guide and copy. We can do this from here, edit, copy, or, Command C, Control C. So I have the exact name. We're going to create an ad, and when prompted to save, we're going to save it in a new folder, just like we do our, My Materials and so on. We're going to do a folder called My Scripts. Where do I do that? Wall. Scroll down. Add component. At the very bottom, there's always the menu or the item called New Script. Click on it. Either type or paste the exact name. Now, when I say exact, I also mean case sensitive, capital C, capital M, capital S. There's nothing meaningful about the name of this script. I made it up. It's just to be consistent with the code that we're going to put in it, because as we will discuss in class, the name of a C# script has to match the name of its main public class, and that's going to be the name of its main public class. The job of this script is to perform, to act when we miss the target and hit the wall. What to do? And I'm going to click create an ad. A dialog will show up. This is a Mac, but on Windows, a Windows dialog will show up asking me, okay, this script, where do you want to save it? And what I'm going to do is navigate. It might bring you to your project or not. I'm going to go to my project. This is why it's important to remember where I saved it. Assets, and before I save, I'm going to create a new folder. On Windows, there's going to be a different way, or even right click to create a new folder, but I'm assuming you know how to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that folder My Scripts. And it's done only for, organization purposes. It'll work even if it's not organized in a folder, but it's a way better practice as a professional to organize your scripts in a folder. I created this My Scripts, and I can finally save. Invalid operator exception, clear. Every time you see something, funny in the console, you just clear it. Next, that was number 11. Then we're going to give it a material. In your assets folder, create a My Materials folder, and in it, we're going to create a material called wall mat. It's about time to give this wall a material. So in my project, I already have my scripts. Right click here, create a new folder, and call it My Materials. Open it. Right click, create material. Call it wall mat, short for material. I always like to give the material to the wall, which we can do, of course, by dragging it in the hierarchy, or just be careful in the scene window. I'd rather do it in the hierarchy right now to make sure. It still looks the same, but now at least if I make changes in it, I will see those changes happening live. The albedo or the texture I'm going to give it is going to be a little further down. Let's see where it is. Here it is. Gray stone wall. Is it the gray stone wall? Let me make sure. Gray stone wall texture and gray stone wall normal later on. So select it, and of course now the material is attached right here. I can do all the parameters. Albedo gray stone wall texture. Here it is, and already got the texture. And then the normal, which is going to give it, that bumpiness. There's already one called gray stone wall normal, so it would give it, more of a 3D look. The only other change I remember that we're going to make is this. Look, I gave it the albedo, I gave it the normal map. I'm also going to increase the strength of the normal map to 2, and I'm going to change the tiling to 5x5 because right now those bricks are too big. Also, walls are not smooth. Decrease the metallic. They're also not metallic, so I'm decreasing it all the way to 0. All those things will be able to change to taste later on. When you do tiling, just make sure you do the top one and not the secondary one. Tiling 5x5, no smoothness, no metallic, and normal map 2, just the way I like it to be a little more pronounced. That's it. Right now we don't even have any lighting, so we can't even barely see the normal. But we definitely see a wall in front of us. Next instruction. While we're there, we're going to take a little detour and create a material called plane mat. The easiest way to do that will be just simply to duplicate the wall mat, edit, duplicate, call it plane mat, ground mat. Here the names are just for convenience. Give it to this. See how it starts as being identical. I'm going to make just tiny little changes. I'm going to make it just a little more like yellowish or like warm color. And I believe I'm going to change the tiling to 10 by 10 because again since the plane is so much bigger than the wall, the tiles look too big. So instead of 5x5, 10 by 10. Again, this is something we'll be able to change to taste. This is like my teacher's example, but that takes us back to the wall. If I forgot any of the parameters, I'll say again. And the plane, I'm also going to give it a tiny little bit of smoothness, so it looks like, if I make it too much, it looks like a very wet, floor. I want it to be a little bit like, 0.4, something like that. But going back to the wall, select the wall in the inspector. The wall should have all of these components, but not necessarily in this order. It should have the transform, its mesh filter, which is like, its shape, its mesh renderer, which includes its material, box collider, which comes with it, the catch mesh script, and the audio source. Let's check if I got all those things. I can collapse them. And of course the material. Yep. It has all the things that I need. And now that it has all those things, in your assets folder, we're going to create a folder called my prefabs. We're going to discuss prefabs in class. We're going to double click to open it. And from the hierarchy, simply drag wall into it and it'll turn into a prefab. In 2 words, what is a prefab? A prefab is a packaged object that we can reuse many, many times. Since we're going to have more than one wall, we want to package it as a prefab and then use it. 4 walls, 5 walls, and then any change to the prefab will affect all of its instances. So I'm creating a new folder called My Prefabs. I'm going to open it, take wall, not the room, just the wall, drag it in. I got a prefab called wall. Not the room, just the wall. It should get the blue icon, and it does. And once the first wall is a prefab, we're going to name the wall instance in the hierarchy, this one, not the prefab, but the one that, that's actually in the scene. We're going to name it wall front, and we're going to add the others in the room. I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to change the name right now. Click and wait a second, wall front, because it is the front wall. I'm going to continue on the next part of this tutorial, which will start from step 16. See you in the next part.